Hear me, defenders of the crown. The power of kings goes with you, and with power comes a duty to your kingdom. Your body is a vessel for the blessings of the Stone of Lucis. Your blade, a ray of hope cleaving a path for the future king. But let it be known, your transgressions have not been forgotten. Once the true king awakens, and the light is restored to this world, only then shall you be forgiven and set free from the burdens you bear.
What's up everyone, Russell here taking an optional extra look at Final Fantasy 15 Comrades, which is essentially a multiplayer expansion to Final Fantasy 15. Now, this was promised or is meant to be included with the Season Pass, that previously was just going to be episode characters for Ignis, Prompto, and Gladius. So now, additionally, you get this multiplayer add-on. And funnily, just a note out there, make sure you do buy the Season Pass opposed to getting the multiplayer expansion, because down under in Australia they're charging about $30 for this expansion, and the Season Pass is about $38, and with the episodes being about $7.95 a piece, it doesn't make much sense to just buy this multiplayer expansion. So do make sure you get the Season Pass in order to get these goodies. Of course, if you're seeing this later or you're considering playing it later, the PC will include all the Season Pass goodies anyway. But in general, for those who haven't, get that Season Pass, because you're better off getting all the episodes as well, as those are quite good, if not perhaps a bit short. But this expansion is quite substantial, honestly, and a lot of stuff in general. But before I get into that, I just wanted to talk about how it kind of fits into the narrative of the game. So I don't want to go too spoilers, but in the context of the game, there's a certain period of time that, let's just say, perhaps it's skipped over, or it's not really shown what happens in the period. They allude to something big, and then stuff happens, and you move forward. So this expansion is set during that time period and allows you to perhaps flesh that out more and see what the struggles of the world is going through during that time period. And I think for a reasonable idea and a position to put it in. So the context of this game is basically you're trying to restore power from Lestalum to all these external content as darkness is kind of taking over the land. So you're basically often on this little grid system trying to get these power points that you get via doing missions, and you pick specific points and you unlock new missions that way, or new upgrades, new shop improvements, just in general granting new things as you progress through. And there is quite a lot of paths to take in general. And it's cool how you unlock hunts or missions in an area, and they essentially making missions or new content that are featured in that location. Now, of course, the other big fact is, since it's online, you can create a fully customizable character. So this customizable character, one of the coolest things right off the bat is that you can pick male or female. So the game, considering you play males, a group of males, essentially the whole game, it's cool to see at least the female option in there for those who want it, and I just enjoy seeing some different character customization that you don't get in the game, because there isn't a particularly large amount of female characters, so it's cool. That's an option now. And the customization in general is kind of what you expect, but also pretty good. I particularly like the level of customization on your clothes. So in terms of at the start of the game, you haven't got much hair options or different. I mean, you can do all the usual body shape stuff. I normally don't touch that stuff, but the hairs and the facial structure, those options are kind of limited at the start, but you can get more as you progress through the game. But the gear is awesome. You don't have really any gear, but I do particularly like being able to. The jacket I had had like 8 or 9 different options, so you can decolor code the buttons and the string and the leather bits and the symbols and everything else. Can all have these unique color combinations. So it really does let it customize and personalize your character a bit, which is very cool. So I think for those who enjoy putting a bit of effort into avatar creation, will definitely enjoy that. And I definitely found myself a good 30 minutes or so just on the avatar screen initially, just trying to make everything as much as I could, even though I said you really don't have much off the get-go, but you get more as you progress, so there is that to look forward to as you kind of play more. But once you got the custom character that you like, then you can actually proceed to the game and do stuff. So I mentioned the grid stuff as you kind of restore power to it throughout Lestalem and throughout Essos in general. And that's where the mission structures and the combats come into place. And there are quite a few different missions you can take on. Now there are essentially three key pillars that you have as options. So you've got the escort mission, which is essentially one where you're doing what it says and that you're escorting something to a specific location, so having to defeat everything that gets in its way and protecting it as it travels. So those ones can be quite challenging, especially if you pick above your level. Things can destroy things quite efficiently, but it's cool feeling the momentum to kind of move around to different locations. Defender mission's another option. So defense is almost like escort but without the moving object. And in some case, they have interesting versions of it where one was prevent these creatures from getting through a certain point. So some has you protecting like a house or some kind of location. Another one have you preventing something, anything crossing a different line. And that one was quite tenseful as you're trying to chase. One of the ones I was doing was trying to chase it down before I got through that line, and it's it added a sense of excitement to the fight, which was cool, making it matter more as I was trying to prevent this thing from getting through. And the other main one is hunts. And hunts, like most of these, are literally the personification of the name. You are told to hunt a specific boss creature, and that's what you do. So typically you're killing all these little grunts as you kind of get to that point, but then once you have a big creature, whatever normally in the title shows up, so it could be a giant snake, but any of those kind of creatures occur. There are also some other just random variants that they try and throw into you to mix up a bit, which I quite enjoyed. So some, I just got solo missions, so one you do by yourself. So often it could just be around like, oh, solo mission occurs, defend this base by yourself, I'll go into this location and do something. Often, normally it pushes the narrative of building up Lestalem and that kind of stuff. But I did like that they do have this mission variety, and sometimes with random occurrence. Another one I quite liked was, I've played a reasonable amount, but I haven't played heaps, so I don't know what happens. I suspect most of them are shot, but Gladios shows up at one point, and you can just take him on in a 1v1 challenge that was quite tough. And that granted you basically a weapon upon defeating him, so they're worthwhile when those characters show up. But yeah, in general, I liked how they mixed things up and made it feel unique or a change as you kind of progress through them. But what I find kind of interesting is the fact that, though a multiplayer expansion, you do not have to play it online at all. So you can complete missions by yourself, but you're still partnered with other AI bots, I guess, to join you in the fights. And to my surprise, the AI bots are pretty good. Like they give them a variety of different abilities. It's kind of random, like what they look like, the abilities they get. So even if you don't want to play online for whatever reason, AI bots can assist you on these missions, which is a nice touch, and it definitely is unexpected that you can just complete some kind of mode, a multiplayer mode online. But I enjoyed the fact, and that in general kind of fits into this game in the sense of there is an endpoint, I believe. I don't think it's just a multiplayer that's just like, oh, you just come back each day and do like online matches or something. It's like, no, there's a story narrative that you're trying to get to a conclusion of whatever arc they've set up. And I think that's how it will hit an endpoint, because I've already seen like this new game plus option where you can seemingly reset. So that tells me, I guess it's like prestiging in games, but in general, I don't think that's the point. I think it's more like, because you conclude the story and there isn't any new missions to do, you can reset, and then suddenly it says you'll verse more tough enemies. So you probably get a benefit too, mind you, but that's from what I can tell, that's just the point. I don't know how long it takes. Like, I'm guessing maybe 20 hours to do it all at this point, but I honestly don't know until I've actually finished it. But there is definitely a lot of content here to be enjoyed. Now, that being said, for the AI bots, although good, human players are better. So just because of the randomization of it, you can get pit with a human player who's way higher than level than you are, randomly, and then they can just take care of a lot of the tougher enemies, making fights a lot more efficient. Also, there are some very flashy abilities too, which they can unlock as they kind of progress through. But so online general is more easier and probably more enjoyable as well, as you've got a sense of playing with other people, real people. But it's by no means necessary. And it's also cool that they just autofill the slot. So if by a certain amount of time someone hasn't, or maybe only one person's joined your team, they'll just fill the rest with AI bots, as opposed to you just sitting in a lobby forever trying to join it. And that's one thing I want to mention was I played the beta for multiple Comrades a while ago, maybe September, I can't remember exactly when it was. But that was very buggy, at least down here in Australia, often getting cut out of games and very difficult to join a team. So I definitely think they've done a lot of improvements from that beta. Although it sometimes has weird bugs where you're in a mission and then a creature's supposed to spawn, but they don't. So you're just kind of waiting around for them to show up. but it doesn't happen too often, and even when it does, I've never been like kicked out of a match or something like that. So most of the time you're just sitting there waiting for a little bit, playing around with your abilities or whatever, just kind of wait for these new creatures to up. So it's not too bad, not the best thing in the world, but not the worst either. Now the combat actually in these missions though is where I honestly preferred it than what was in the main game for two main reasons. The first is you don't have consumable items anymore. So consumable items in the game mostly made it so there was no challenge. So if you're fighting any boss in the game, you can potentially be way under leveled, but if you had, I don't know, 50, 100 elixirs or whatever, you could just continually heal yourself up and get down, heal yourself back up, and blah, 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 blah. Rinse and repeat, and eventually defeat everything and everything. There is one or two challenges where they prevent that from happening. I mean, I think they started adding a couple more later, but in general, there wasn't much in the main game. The main game, I think, actually has none. I think it's more side mission stuff I'm talking about that actually has those restrictions on it. With this, you don't have consumables. You do have spells that can heal yourself, but if you're not tough enough, you get killed and lose missions. Like, there isn't like a never-ending item that you can just keep going through. So I like that. And the other I liked, for me personally, I didn't... In the main game, you have to draw spells. You're drawing out these, I guess, material to create powerful spells, combine them with different items and whatever. And they had the potential to have some crazy effective abilities that wouldn't otherwise be achieved in other Final Fantasy games, and they're often very spectacular to watch, but I didn't like doing it. I didn't like going through the effort of constantly recreating new spells, and I found the weapons were more effective enough that I just kept using them all the time. So I never lose new spells, but in the multiplayer, you don't have consumables. So now what you do is you're like upgrading gear, and when you upgrade the gear, you can equip the different spells to different weapons. So you can have all the D-pad slots, so 4 weapons equipped, and one could have fire, for example. So when you have that equipped, you can cast these fire spells, and then another one could have lightning equipped, so you can use lightning spells when that one's equipped. So I really did like that ability, and I tend to use magic a whole lot more than I ever used to, and I liked the incentive to switch weapons because of the abilities they have equipped. So it used to be just like, oh, I need to equip a different weapon now because this creature's very mobile or something, and I have the katana, and the katana is my favorite one, but it's slower, so when you're versing things that are flying around and very nimble, they often hit you before you have a chance to actually hit them. So often you're switching to daggers, or shurikens is the one I particularly like, because shuriken makes you very area movable, so you're constantly just flying around in the air, throwing the shuriken everywhere. So it visually looks really cool, and it has also very fast potential to take care of things from a distance as well. I think daggers are technically the most effective at it, but in general, I did definitely like the new emphasis on combat, and actually did find it kind of superior to what was in the main game. So for those who maybe thought like I did and that they weren't happy about how the spells are implemented, I think you'll find is more enjoyable in this multiplayer. And in general, the combat is fun. Sometimes it's just hold the button and dodge things at the right time, but often there's a strategic layer to how you're playing something. So it might be like teleporting out at the right time and healing yourself, or simply targeting specific weakness of a creature. So there is some strategy there. It's not nearly as much strategy as an old RPG, but it's what was in Final Fantasy 15. They haven't really overhauled it that much, but overhauled it enough to make it worthwhile, in my opinion. Meals also take a return, so when you actually complete a mission... Now, this is the thing that I don't think they really explain that well, and I don't even know if it matters that much, but you can pick up ingredients at different points, but you're going to hold one ingredient at a time. And when you complete a mission, everyone's ingredients are pulled together to make a dish. So I like the fact that they're pulling the dish mechanic from the main game into there, and when you eat that dish, you get a benefit like next time you win a mission, you get more items, or more experience, or gear, that kind of stuff. Which I liked the fact it's in there, but I don't know if I fully understand how that food system works. Most of the time, I just try and find the rarest thing or something I haven't seen before and just grab that. There's no like list anywhere that explains like, if you have these ingredients, you make this dish that gives you these benefits. I think it's more just like, actually you can't really tell someone else to pick something up. So it's most of the time just picking up the most new thing I can have and just hoping that contributes something worthwhile to the team, making a worthwhile dish at the end, that kind of thing. And also it gives you incentive to play a mission straight after as opposed to getting off. So you might have a really good upgrade, might be most experienced the next one. You go, okay, better do a mission now then, as opposed to quitting or something. So it gives that kind of incentive to continue playing and some continual benefit, though not excessively beneficial. It's not like you're suddenly like 100% more powerful or something like that. Oh, I don't think they get that good. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned specific to the combat that I really like, and that's because of the lack of it being featured in the game, and that was you pick up crypts from the main game. So in the main game, Noctis goes to these various crypts of past Lucii kings, and he gets a new armature weapon that's featured based off that king's signature weapon, I guess. In this, the crypts are being taken to Lustulum, or you're going to the crypts to get a new ability, and then that spirit, I guess, shows up to you and grants you a new ability, and those abilities are very powerful. I've seen quite a few cool looking ones. Now, I've only personally myself got the first one. Well, I believe it's the first one. You technically don't have to get it, but this healing one where you basically send a healing force field around the area. That's the one I have. I've also seen a couple more on the map that I haven't gone to get because once you've used your power, and I'm trying to focus on a power path that's the cheapest overall, hoping to unlock as many missions as I can, trying to create a general path, because I could just sit at a certain point and just, you know, aim for those upgrades, but I prefer to, you know, progress through the game. But I have seen a couple people use those different abilities. One has some kind of red tinge in giving this red upgrade to everyone that I think makes you stronger, and another one I saw that I really like is this barrier one, where essentially they make a full barrier around the character and you can all hide within, because they're all team-based abilities for the most part, all of them I can tell are, and you get under this force field and it essentially completely protected under it, and they just hold this force field, and the visual looks really cool. And I once again like that they are implementing new mechanics into this mode, so it's not simply just, we'll just chuck the usual stuff in here. Now, there is an option that I don't know if it's in this game yet or it's supposed to be added later, but there's an option to play familiar faces. So, yeah, that means you might be playing as Noctis and Gladios and Prompto and stuff. Even if I don't know if it makes sense in the story sense, but I think that's probably the idea, but I would like them to add in like some of the villain characters or characters you've never even spent much time with in the game, potentially down the line. Now, I don't know if any of that's in there right now, because I have not seen anyone play a hero character, but it would be cool if you could play them, and it makes sense that they've already developed 3 of their movesets in a single-player focus, and Ignis is on the way in December, so you know, I expect all of them to be in there, but there are quite a few other characters that I would also like to see, if not see more, so I hope that's added down the line. As it currently stands, as I kind of progress through it, and you unlock like new areas, so the main quest at the moment, I don't know what changes, if it changes later, I suspect it will, but is to go to these 4 different HQs on the map. And for the most part, it's going to take a while to get there. Like, I've only gone to 1, I think I'm getting closer to a couple because of kind of how I'm branching out the pass, but I do foresee that there's heaps of playability here, and one thing I kind of didn't like is that you can travel to the locations once you've got them, that have new shops and like really cool costumes and abilities and that kind of thing, but you have to go through the loading screen to get there, and then it's just a little area where you basically go to a couple of shops and purchase a couple things, and there's a little bit of lore things around the area, but it's slow to get there and then slow to get back, so I kind of wish that they would have just have some option somewhere where you can just shop remotely, essentially. So there's a shop, and you can click it, and then just buy the gear, as opposed to having to waste time, I guess, traveling to the location, then come back. I do like the fact that hunts, now from the area, are all kind of centralized in there, so if it often leads back to that location, or you can see it in the distance. So I do like that it's all based off the map. And by the way, this is just the map in the main game, so it's not like you're going to any new area, although most of the areas are explored in the main game, so there's a potential to go to some unexplored areas, but pretty much most of it's you go to. But yes, in general, I enjoyed this DLC. I think it's worthwhile, especially if you're on the Season Pass. You're getting the episode Ignis and whatnot. You're now getting this. It's not free, I guess, so there is a cost associated, but it's not nearly as much as you just buy it separately. So I definitely fully recommend getting that Season Pass instead. And there's a lot here to enjoy, and honestly, I want to finish it, which I don't know how much of a story arc it will actually set up, but I am enjoying myself, and I like investing in new creatures, and that's the thing, there are a couple of new creatures. I versed a magic pot, which was not featured in the main game, and it kind of hops around. For those who don't know, magic pot is like literally like a super iconic Final Fantasy enemy, and it was cool to see it in this game, so I hope there's more features, and even then they have variants on different monsters and whatnot, and it's an overall different experience just because of your mechanics as well. But in general, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it for anyone who likes Final Fantasy, or perhaps just didn't have any reason to play Final Fantasy anymore, and may perhaps need an excuse to come back. And I think this is one of the more meatier additions they've had. Maybe not on the story sense, but definitely in a content sense. So if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe and provide any feedback, as we kind of want to grow our community and hopefully build something with this channel. And of course, thanks for watching, and we hope you come back for more.
My comrades, we serve as a reminder that in the very face of death, mankind will not back down. And in our darkest hour, we will stand against this evil together.
Demons ahead, get ready!
Together, in one voice, we will answer those prayers. For one day, the light will return. and we will be there, waiting. We are the Guardians, the fire that burns in the dead of night. We are the Kingsglaive.